people that want to apply for their permit to carry, and say you either use cannabis over the age of 21 or you have a cannabis card, don't worry about the background check on that side. They're not going to deny your check based on that in and of itself.
Okay.
The main thing is kind of like the funny thing, like a lot of these laws already are in place. Like you can't carry under the influence of a substance that affects your judgment.
Yep.
So of course that would be like alcohol,
Yep.
Cannabis, whether or not it's legalized, and prescription medications. As it relates to cannabis, the main thing to keep in mind
It ain't that
is
I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. I made a few plays off a flip, now I'm on top. I'm Southside Chief, homie, yeah. What you know about it? Lake Street legend CEO, not the co-founder. What you wanna know about me? I'm so churched up, I'm the last man standing, but I went first up. Most hated, they don't say it when I roll up. The things that people say about me, they don't say close up. Check it, I ain't been to the booth in a minute. Niggas hate the fact that I'm winning. Who makes him the chief of the south side? Oh my nigga, I'm not the lieutenant. When I was in the gym, you wasn't in it. FaceTime, so my windows is tinted. If I said that shit, then I meant it. Niggas gave me the rules and I bent it. Same nigga that was trapping while I was suspended. You wasn't in them hallways banging, boy, you wasn't in it. Really a genuine nigga, homie, don't get offended. From East Lake, South Murder, I'm just it ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. It ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't. Say, it ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. I made a few plays off a flip, now I'm on top. I'm Southside Chief, homie. What you know about it? Southside Chief, homie. Now what you know, look, I'm Southside Chief, homie. What you know about it? Lake Street legend CEO, not the co-founder. What you wanna know about me?
All right, another episode of Minnesota's #1 daily show live on Lake Street. I'm your host, Jake Faircloth, a.k.a. Podcast Poppy. Follow me everywhere at Jake Faircloth1. Follow us everywhere at Live on Lake Street. Special guest in the building. We got Manuel from Atlas Defense.
glad to be here.
So, no, I'm excited about this because, you know, I'm a big proponent of, I'm just going to be just blunt about it. People having guns.
Yeah,
that's
we
what
got the right.
I'm a big proponent. People that that are able to be responsible, obviously, and you know, own them the right
Legally,
way, legally, and I mean, on some level, if you
Even
can't get one legally, I still think you should have one. Maybe you don't carry it.
Yeah, there's harm reductive ways to go about that, and sometimes that means if you got to be the trained person around people that don't know what they're doing, at least you can be the person that helps keep things safer.
Yeah, I would prefer you to be able to do it legally, but I think in today's day and age, I mean, really any day and age, to be honest, but it does seem to becoming more. It's getting more dangerous out here.
True that. It's
getting more dangerous, you know. And it's funny because I have this conversation with people, and they're like, like, wow, you ain't in the streets. What do you need a gun for? It's like I don't own a firearm or carry a firearm for the streets. I carry a firearm for the fucking grocery store, for church, for school, for you know what I'm saying. Like, that's why I got it.
Yep. There's people that think that it's weird that I've also been plant-based vegan for like almost 8 years.
Okay.
And people are like, why are you carrying a gun and you're supposed to be this like peace-loving vegan at the same time? I'm like, guess what? Even a vegan is going to tell you, like, if an animal tries to eat you, you're going to want to inconvenience them. If a white supremacist wants to attack me, I'm going to make it hard for them to do that.
For sure.
So either way, you've got a will to survive.
I don't know what your diet got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they think that's like that means that you like have to like not defend yourself or something. I'm like, no, like, you know, you can still defend yourself and de-escalate things even without harming other people.
For
and
sure.
Even if it were to get to the point of having to use some kind of force, it takes training, background, understanding to know when and where is appropriate, knowing when and where is the time to step off too.
Yeah.
Because Minnesota does have different laws than a lot of other states do, but it takes training. And
I don't like some of our laws. I feel like if somebody kicks down my front door, I should be able to shoot them right in the face. But
well, we got a 4-hour class to that.
Okay. I mean, I understand you can't. Yeah. I mean, you can.
If your life is at risk. Yeah.
But, chances are if somebody just kicks down your door and you meet them with bullets, if they're unarmed, you're probably going to get in trouble. Yeah. You might not go to prison.
Yeah, I have to tell everybody you're going to be treated like a criminal.
Yeah.
And especially black, brown, working class people, we know that we're already underserved, underrepresented, and not prioritized when it comes to community safety. So that's why we ultimately are doing this to help people take control of their own community safety
Yeah.
instead of waiting on others, waiting on voting, waiting on the police to do anything, because our neighbors are going to be the ones that are closest to us when we're in a moment of crisis.
Yeah.
I'd rather train my neighbors than help the police.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. I mean, I agree. I've never heard it
Yeah.
put that way, but that makes a ton of sense. Like, yeah.
Well, we do this explicitly as an abolitionist organization, so there's
that I did not know.
there's a balance to be had, of course, of like teaching people how to learn the laws and how to practice community defense, community safety.
Okay.
Because, like we said, yeah, you have to be above board.
Is there any? I mean, I know we talked a little bit prior about kind of your path to this.
Oh yeah.
But it seems to me like, of all the people that need training, police are kind of towards the top of that list. They don't. It doesn't seem like
repair.
they're getting the proper training.
I used to think that too. I was military police when I was in the Marines.
Yeah.
I was a shooting coach too. That was my secondary job, and that was to train people how to use cruiser weapons, regular personal firearms. And honestly, when I got out of the military, that was probably one of my turning points when I understood that in the military and the police, you're trained to exercise your qualified immunity, meaning that they're not going to face repercussions for what happens when they miss, what happens when they shoot when they're not supposed to shoot. So most of those tactics are based on not facing repercussions for what they're doing. Civilians, us, we are going to face repercussions.
Yeah.
We're going to have a criminal case. We're going to have a civil suit. And there's a whole other set of laws that apply to civilians that don't apply to the police. So when I was trying to unlearn everything that I learned in the military, I'm like, oh, this is all based on assault in the military, whereas on the civilian side, it's based on defense and based on not assuming negative intent of everybody you come across. I was indoctrinated, especially when I was studying law enforcement at University of St. Thomas, to believe that like everybody you come across in a traffic stop is out to get you. And believe me when I say, like, there's no amount of training that can change that culture of them thinking they're clocking into a war zone every day.
Yeah.
And it's very, you could blame the patriarchy or like the machismo that goes into it, but it's not just that. It's the fact that, look at where most of the tanks were during the uprising. They're by uptown where all those like really nice stores are. They're protecting all the really nice spaces.
Yep.
I think that was most revealing to us though, of like where their priorities really were.
For sure.
And ultimately, yeah, back to the training thing. Like, Marines are sometimes, like myself, and I know other Marines too, we can be sometimes the most like shocked or surprised by police violence when we see ourselves in the same place. Like in Afghanistan, for example, we had rules of engagement sometimes that would change from month to month, and sometimes you literally couldn't even shoot back when they're shooting at you because of the rules of engagement and everything else that was going on.
Was that based on like location or what was?
Location, politics. We weren't in Afghanistan to win anyway, so I'm not gonna get into that.
Okay.
But that's all to say that like we were trained to have restraint. Even when somebody's pointing a gun at you, there was plenty of times that we couldn't, and I didn't want to shoot. And I wasn't a door kicker or anything crazy when I was in the Marines. I just was training other Afghan police. But then again, I signed up knowing that I could be shot at, and I did get shot at. We got mortars and rockets and suicide bomber attacks, those kind of things. But even those things, I think that, like, again, like, we were trained to have restraint. So when you come back home and see all these police act with no restraint, it's not necessarily just their training. It's the police unions that enable this kind of stuff. It's that warrior mindset training and just, like, the warrior kind of, like, culture that they think that they need to be in when they're supposed to be public servants. And 9 times out of 10, like, I would say, like, 99.999 times out of 10, when you're, at a traffic stop, nobody's there to hurt anybody besides the people that have qualified immunity. And like I said, that's just the indoctrination. Like when I was at St. Thomas especially, they just trained us with lots of dash cam footage of police officers getting attacked at traffic stops, mostly by people of color or working class people. And they told you, like, and this is where I saw that spillover, though, of like military culture affecting them, where they were telling us, you need to be ready to kill anybody you meet. And that's like an old Marine saying, too, of like, be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill anybody you meet. And that was when they were like invading, doing kinetic stuff in Afghanistan and Iraq. But then you take that mindset and apply it here. Do you think you really need to have a plan to kill anybody you meet during a traffic stop?
No.
Probably not. Yeah.
No. Like
So,
you said, 99.999% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even the times
even
when things
then.
do when things do go wrong, it's
They
not,
got body armor.
and you're not, and it's not because the person that they're dealing with is an aggressor. It's because they're fucking scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's because they're scared. You know, I mean, even myself, I go into defense mode when if I get pulled over. It's like I don't know
You can
you.
know all your rights, and you can
Yeah.
still get scared. Yeah.
I don't know you, and you have all the as far as I know, you have all the power in the world over me at this moment.
Yeah.
You could make anything up. You can get rid of the footage. I mean, like you could do anything.
We teach our students to look up statutes too, and look at the statutes that pertain to or that talk about the use of force by police officers.
Yeah.
And there's a one-line statute they use most of the time that says they can use deadly force when they're defending themselves or their partner from an apparent threat.
An apparent threat.
So the word apparent is the operative term there. This can look like an apparent threat.
Right.
And people have gotten shot going like that to police.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
making a gun motion with my hand.
People have
for
gotten
that
shot
can't hear.
by trying to ride away in their just drive away. Honestly, let's keep it very real.
Yeah.
Driving away from a traffic stop, that is not
A threat.
means to start shooting
No.
at them.
No.
That is insanity.
It's cowardly. Like, if you think about it in real terms, like shooting somebody in the back, point blank period, any way you think of it,
Yeah.
shooting somebody in the back is cowardly.
Absolutely.
Shooting people that can't shoot back, like, that's why I don't hunt. That's why I'm not going to plant too much vegan stuff. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I got some feeling about hunting animals that can't shoot back, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down that path.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, I'm for hunting.
and I might still hunt too. I don't know.
Done
Yeah.
right. I mean, we might all get to the point where
Ethically.
we're going to have to hunt. It
Yep.
might get there. I mean, it will
Oh, yeah.
get there. Maybe not for us, but maybe our kids or their kids.
I'm
Like,
going to
it's
make sure
probably
they
gonna
know how
get
to do
there.
it. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. Back
I'm not
to
a
the
hunter
point.
either, for the record, but I understand hunting. At
Yeah,
some level.
I still own a hunting bow.
Okay.
It was cheaper than my suppressor,
For
but
sure.
I eventually got a suppressor too.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But yeah, I think that like most people are starting to wake up to the realization that most interactions with law enforcement are based on them assuming the negative on us, no matter what. And if we can mitigate that, we can do that by learning things like cop watch techniques, know your rights, learning how to advocate for other people that you see interacting with the police
sure.
without interfering with them.
Yep.
And
there was a
that's-
long stretch of time, probably about a year, during or shortly after the pandemic. No, I'm sorry. No, it was after Philando Castile.
Mhm.
So this would have been 2016,
I remember that, 2016.
2017.
Yep.
Where if I saw a traffic stop that involved black people, I would stop.
Yeah,
I'd just go to the other side of the street and just stop and wait.
exactly.
And just
That's
wait.
all you gotta do
Just
is
for no, just
witness and
I
hold
don't-
them accountable.
exactly. Yeah. And I got yelled at a bunch of times, and there were times where like you got to keep going. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm out. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not getting, you know.
Yeah, and that's why we had to train people to know their rights and know that the police can legally lie to you.
Yeah.
They were just lying to me today. We saw 3 black girls in Hopkins sitting on the curb at a Holiday gas station surrounded by 3 Hopkins police officers, like 3 squad cars. And I could tell they were minors, so I asked my wife, hey, can we pull really quick, just ask the girls if they need us to do anything. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, we're all minors. We don't know what's going on. Can you call my dad? And that's all we ended up doing. We pulled back, called her parents, and just waited until the legal guardian showed up. But sometimes it's as simple as that. Is like knowing that you want to do something, but then knowing how to do it. It takes training to do that with confidence.
Yeah.
And that's why I was almost late here.
And cops don't like being challenged
Oh no.
at all. Like
Even
they don't like
even
being
if it's
challenged.
factually based, even if
Yeah.
it's legally factually based, they don't like it.
Yeah,
So-
you see a lot of it, TikTok and like you see the videos, like they just don't like being challenged, and they hate a person that knows their rights.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite video is to watch those people that just refuse
They
to
get all
roll down
flustered.
their window, or I don't answer questions. I pulled
Not
that.
discussing my day.
I pulled that one once. I pulled
Mhm.
that I don't answer questions once, and he left.
Yep. Yeah,
Didn't
not-
get me to the left.
Yeah, there you
Drove
go.
away. I was like,
hmm
oh shit, that
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, he might have been 4 seconds away from going the complete opposite way. and
Exactly.
Busting out my window. You just
Yeah.
never know. Wow. So, and this is all mine. Everybody that's watching, this is coming from somebody that has been you've been through
the training
enforcement,
and
law enforcement training, military training,
hmm
and you're still out here denouncing.
Because I know that it never like nothing I did in Afghanistan made you all safer. I was in Afghanistan in 2011 when Bin Laden got killed in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't believe the amount of people that emailed me saying, "Oh, the war's over. You're coming home now, right?" I'm like, "No, we're not here to win."
Yeah, and there were more Bin Ladens as well.
Oh yeah,
A lot more.
Yeah.
literally
same
and
conditions,
figuratively.
yeah.
Literally
Yeah.
and figuratively. He had sons, and there were other men, and still are other men
Yeah.
out there just like him.
They
that are-
got trained by the U.S.
for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's probably a really long podcast
Mhm.
to go down that road. But that is something. You know, I'm very. Oh, is that dangerous for me to say? I'm anti-war.
Yeah.
I am anti-war.
That's fair.
It's
Everybody
not,
should
and
be.
it's not because it has nothing to do with the troops, with the men and women that are
Mhm.
out there,
No, yeah.
defending us or
Mhm.
doing their job. That it has nothing to do with them.
It's the
I
people
support
sending
them
us,
as humans and understand that they are trained to do a job
Mm-hmm.
like anybody else that has a job,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a job that is unlike any else. So I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody that is in the
Oh,
military.
yeah.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody that joins any
We all sign the
branch of
same
the
contract,
military.
is what I tell people. Yeah.
But I hate war.
Mhm.
I hate it. I really do. I hate it. I think
You should.
it's unfortunately, we have probably gone too far to call it unnecessary,
Mm-hmm.
because I think if we just stopped warring, things might go really badly. But I don't know.
I mean, worse? Like, how can it get worse?
I mean, good point. I mean, you're right. It's a good point. I don't know, but I fear a great deal for the future, because you're starting to be able to get on Twitter now and literally see war being live streamed.
Oh, yeah.
You can literally see their pages out there that are live streaming
Lebanon right now.
Yeah, the
Yep.
Russian-Ukraine conflict,
Mhm.
like
Africa right now, too.
yeah, I have seen some wild videos. I mean, I saw a video of, I believe it was a Russian soldier that had just killed a Ukrainian soldier
Mhm.
and taken his phone and FaceTimed the man's wife to laugh at her
Mm-hmm.
about having just killed her husband.
Yeah. And the amount of,
That's only going to get more prominent and worse.
techno-capitalism, man. Yeah, the technology on the battlefield nowadays, like, even when I was younger, like, my first deployment, I thought it was wild that they had Wi-Fi and, like, on the military bases as early as 2010, probably
Yeah.
sooner than that. And the second time that I went back, I'll be open about this. I worked for the company that people used to know as Blackwater. And I went back to Afghanistan in 2015 with that
Is
company.
this video going to get taken down now?
No.
It might be.
No, I mean, honestly, like, if I say that I worked for their company, the company that I worked for was called Academy, but that was Blackwater after they changed their name. And it's not that, I mean, they're an above ground company. Like,
I mean, they're in
yeah.
movies and shit. It's
no, right, that
kind
too.
of pop. Blackwater's kind of pop culture a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I just try to get in front of that and just tell people, yes, the company that I worked for was just a name change away from Blackwater. It was the same facility, same people, and they basically changed their name every time that they killed civilians. So back in 2006,
shit.
Blackwater changed their name from Blackwater to XE when they shot a bunch of civilians in Iraq. And then they had another what you call bad shoot sometime after that, and they changed from XE to Academy, and then that's the company I worked for. So that's why I know people do their research, and I'm glad that people do. But if I said I worked for Academy and acted like it wasn't that big of a deal, somebody would do their research and then be like, "Oh, he's trying to hide something." But I got nothing to hide. That's why I'm here.
That's pretty wild. Okay, so I want to get to an important topic
Mm-hmm.
about August 1st, the legalization of marijuana in
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
How does this? And I talked about this a little bit with Michael Ford from Minnesota Marijuana
Oh, good.
about how things, this changes things
Mhm.
now with the gun laws. The gun laws and marijuana laws, the laws don't change for guns,
Mm-mm.
but if you're
It's-
mixing them up, it can
Don't fuck around.
it can change. It can
You can catch some serious
you can
charges.
catch some
still.
serious charges.
Yeah.
So can you just talk to me a little bit about the impact of that?
Yeah.
With the gun laws.
Yeah, happy to. Let me preface this by saying I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal guidance.
Got it.
But
Yep.
I'm giving what's called professional guidance.
Yes.
So I'm using my lens of experience to try to translate this to the civilian side, so we can exercise all of our rights as best we can with confidence. So, all that aside, the main way that we can see this kind of affect our lives or manifest in the way that we own or carry a firearm or possess or consume cannabis is pretty much that if you get a cannabis card or you're over 21 and just a legal user of cannabis now, you cannot be denied your permit to carry application based on that in and of itself.
Okay.
Back in the day, right? Back in the day, as in last month, the application used to say, "Are you a unlawful user of cannabis?" or something like that. So they actually had to change the application now to remove that part, because according to state law, you can't be an unlawful user of cannabis as long as you're over the age of 21 or you have a cannabis card.
Okay.
So the main thing is for like permit to carry people that want to apply for their permit to carry, and say you either use cannabis over the age of 21 or you have a cannabis card. Don't worry about the background check on that side. They're not going to deny your check based on that in and of itself.
Okay.
The main thing is kind of like the funny thing, like a lot of these laws already are in place. Like you can't carry under the influence of a substance that affects your judgment.
Yep.
So of course that would be like alcohol,
Yep.
Cannabis, whether or not it's legalized, and prescription medications. As it relates to cannabis, the main thing to keep in mind is that there's contestable ways how they could conduct what's called a field sobriety test if you get pulled over on the side of the road.
Yep.
And that's not to say you should contest it right there when you're getting pulled over, but then when you get to booking, you should be demanding a blood test.
Okay.
Because they could do things like mouth swabs to see how soon that you might have smoked.
Yep.
But what if you like drink a THC drink? How can they, like, that's not going to be the same result as if they did a mouth swab for whether or not you smoked. So those methods are imperfect right now, meaning that they could be contestable with a good attorney. And that's why, again, like, I recommend, to like, wait until you get a chance to talk to your attorney if something like that were to go down. But also don't fuck around, because if you don't put those things in your car at the same time, you're less likely to catch a charge like that.
Yeah.
And that's all as it pertains to state law. The big issue, though, is that you can still get federally charged. So you could catch a federal charge for having cannabis with you, either on you or under the influence of cannabis, while having a firearm on the federal level.
Yep.
And that would only, I'm not a cop or anything like that. I'm not an attorney. But my estimation is that, like, you would run the risk of federal charges mostly if you were doing that on federal property.
Okay.
Or if you cross state lines doing both of those things.
Got it.
So post offices, even without all this change, unfortunately, people have caught charges most often inadvertently, or like they forgot that they have a gun with them when they go into a post office or when they park in the parking lot of a federal
I did that at the
facility.
hospital yesterday, or 2 days ago.
Yeah, right. So you got to pay attention to your surroundings.
They almost jumped on me.
Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to the signs.
Yeah.
But post offices are federal property. Do not mess with that. Just park on the street. Leave your stuff in the car. Go do your business, but never go into the parking lot of a post office. Don't go into the post office if you're doing either one of those things.
Okay.
There's other federal property around here too, like the VA hospital, of course, VA cemetery, La Migra, or immigration offices, Social Security office on Franklin. What else? There's one more I'm trying to remember. Federal Reserve that's downtown here as well, and federal courthouses.
Okay.
So most of the time they've got signs and whatnot that really show you that you're about to cross into federal property. But I can't emphasize that enough, because I know people that have caught like serious charges because they were those two things were just circumstantially a part of the case, and then they brought it up to higher charges because it was during the uprising too.
And so I want to be clear about something else too. If you are operating your vehicle and you are pulled over and an officer smells the smell of marijuana, is that still grounds for a search, or is it only grounds for a potential drug test?
It's hard to like consistently answer this, because my understanding is also that they no longer can say I smell cannabis, because I
heard that even before.
They need specific training. Yeah, they need like some kind of technical training to be able to say that, and not all police officers have that. Even then, I wouldn't say contest that if they say your car smells like weed. Well, fuck you. Show me your certification. Don't try that.
That's not going to work.
Right. At that point, that's going to come down to a good attorney being able to throw certain bits of evidence out after the fact. So what we need to do mostly is focus on just surviving that traffic stop, so you can exercise all your rights in the court of law.
So you don't recommend any type of contest on the spot? Not
on site. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
Yeah,
I think that's really smart, and that is something that is, I think, one, very difficult for a lot of people to do.
Myself included. Yep.
Myself included. You want to argue. You want to give pushback,
even if you know you're right.
Yep. Even if you know you're right. So your recommendation is get your day in court.
Keep your mouth shut. Yep.
Get
What
your
is
day in
that? Pot Brothers at Law in SoCal, they say shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't know if I can say that, but
Yeah.
just like stop talking. Wait until you have an attorney. Don't sign anything. Don't write anything down. When you get booked, demand the blood test, and that will be more accurate than any other like passive field sobriety test that they might give.
Even if you know that the blood test is going to come up positive.
You know what? Yeah, I gotta remember it's not legal advice. You can't. I don't say you can't refuse a blood test. It might come up anyways.
Yeah.
But I would say like if you're unsure.
But I guess a blood test in custody doesn't really say. That just means that you have smoked weed, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
done edibles.
It's hard to tell what the concentration is.
That
or
doesn't
how
prove that
soon
you were
they took it.
driving around smoking weed.
Exactly.
So yeah, so essentially the blood test doesn't really even. There's still no proof of anything.
Yeah.
So they kind of got to catch you in the act, really.
Yeah.
Because
And that's
even a
where
half-burnt joint in your ashtray doesn't
you
necessarily.
see me smoke it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also where all the surveillance that they've been putting up.
Mhm.
If you've noticed all those camera towers in
Yep.
Minneapolis, a lot of that. My hot take probably is mostly just that it's because they have a budget surplus right now.
Yep.
Nobody wants to be a cop, so they have all this extra money.
Yep.
And they're throwing it at surveillance because that's an easy thing to buy a lot of cameras, make it look like they're watching, and then just have the footage to go back on later. So
So they're not watching you, but they will run it back on you.
they got the recording.
Because there ain't
maybe.
nobody there. I mean, who's sitting watching street
I know.
cameras?
I try to tell people that too. Like even
Yeah.
private property or like small communities
Yeah.
or small businesses that
Yep.
like ask for those towers to come out because they think it'll make them safer. I'm like, they're not actually watching the live stream.
No.
Like, and it gives that false sense of security.
Yeah.
Like when I train other organizations, anything from like a data center to a school to a mosque to a
Target
nonprofit. Yeah.
Target parking lot cameras.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
They don't got a security guy in a little hut somewhere watching all the cameras. They got activity in
No.
Sector C.
And the
Like-
one guy that is, he's surrounded by probably about 200, 300 screens.
Yeah.
And probably playing Candy Crush. the whole time.
Probably. Yep. Yeah. So that's all. Yeah. Public. Whatever you want to call it.
Public safety is an illusion.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, very much so an illusion. Yeah.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time, those cameras actually can end up being used to help you.
Mhm.
You know, I just recently heard a
Prove
story
your
about it.
innocence.
I just
Yeah.
recently heard a story about a kid that got pulled over on his bicycle
Mhm.
for running a red light.
Mhm.
And it was I forget what the technicality was, but he knew that he knew he was able to do it at this time or something like
Yeah.
that. And the officer ended up arresting him and taking him to jail
Mhm.
because he like had moved his handlebars, and the
Mhm.
cop said that was a threatening gesture.
Gosh.
So he got a lawyer and got the footage from the street cameras. Boom.
That's the one thing about
Lawsuit.
the surveillance state is that
Yeah.
they can help you too.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean the biggest to me the biggest
Yeah.
problem with police, and has been for a really long time, is just the accountability.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, normally even in a situation like that, it's like, okay, fine, you win the case, we'll settle, but that guy's back on the streets doing the same shit the next fucking day, or gets 2
And he
months
knew-
paid
Yeah.
vacation, and then
And he could
comes
say that
back.
he was scared of a bicyclist for like what? And these guys are the ones that think they're so fucking hard
That's
too.
what I'm saying
Yeah.
too. Like it's the same thing. It's like y'all are the most. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
You got body armor everywhere, bro. Like, come on.
toughest gang on the planet, right?
Mhm.
Biggest, toughest, most dangerous gang on the planet
Yep.
is the police force,
Yep.
and they
Yeah.
act like bitches.
Yeah, me and my Marine buddies have always been like, you are surprised when you get shot at? Like, we signed up knowing we're going to get shot at. That's why we have body armor and armored trucks,
That's
right?
the whole thing, right?
I thought that's why you all are public servants, because you are brave enough to do that more
Yeah.
than anybody else, right?
Yeah. Which I can respect.
Yeah,
If
I
that's
would
the case,
try
I
to.
can respect that.
Yeah.
And I don't. I also want to be clear. Like I don't hate police, but I hate the idea,
system that they're
system.
enforcing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's there you go. That's
Mhm.
exactly it. Like I don't look at a cop and go, "That's a bad person." I look at a
Mhm.
cop and go, "That is they are
Person
part,
without
they are a part of
options.
they are a part of a bad system."
'Cause I was a part of that system back
Yeah.
in the day. And, like,
That guy probably goes home at the end of the day and is a
Mhm.
normal guy, just like the rest of us, right? Probably. Well, maybe
Mm.
I don't know.
well, there's a good
the
percent.
statistics are pretty high.
Statistically, they beat their wives.
Yeah, statistically
Yeah.
they beat their wives. That's
Mhm.
true. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. And probably do more drugs than anybody else
Yeah.
and drink.
But I know why, for example, I joined the Marines because I thought I was helping. I thought, I'm not from this country. I was born in Bogota, Colombia,
Okay. Oh,
raised
shit.
by white people in transcontinental adoption, to
Oh, wow.
believe that I needed to, like, earn my citizenship by joining the military. So there's lots of immigrants that think like that too, or just regular people that think that they need to like earn their place in this society by doing some kind of public service. And that doesn't even mean you need to become a cop. You can become a bus driver and do the same thing.
Sure.
But there's also trauma and domination, all that stuff that goes into it of like why you might notice too that like the military recruits out of poor POC neighborhoods exclusively because people that are in those kind of situations are going to see what's at power, and that's either going to be somewhat organized street level crime or the police. And if you're going to align with the power, you might be tempted to align with the most powerful power in your neighborhood. And unbeknownst to you, you end up protecting property and white supremacy more than helping your people. So I think that's like what led me to end up joining the military, for example, because I thought that I owed it to the country, and I would like to say I wouldn't change anything, mostly because I wouldn't want other people to go through this kind of experience to be able to train the way we train now.
Yeah.
But I feel like I went through that experience so I can train people the way we train now, to train like humans and train with accountability and train knowing all of your rights.
Would you say that a lot of men and women that join, I guess the police force, we could mix the military in there a little bit more, but let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, let's say just the police. Do you think a vast majority of them join under the right guys, and then over time things change for them?
I think it's kind of like, it's basically joining or doing anything like that is just a reflection of your personality, right? So if you were already a white supremacist, then yeah, that's going to exemplify that even more. If you were a good person joining the military or the police, then you're going to become one of those silent police officers.
Yeah.
I don't call them good cops. I call them silent police officers because
they're not good cops.
No, they're just being silent, and
Yes.
they're consenting to all the bad shit that their coworkers are doing.
Agreed.
And that's what I was, one of the silent Marines. I was most of the time outnumbered in my platoons or in the working groups I was in by other white people or people that were put in charge of me. And I knew that I couldn't speak up for myself or for the homophobic stuff or the racist stuff like that was going on. Because if I did, then you skyline yourself. That means you like bring too much attention to yourself.
Yeah, it's
and then you get hazed, you'll miss opportunities, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest problem. I guess I haven't heard this about the military, but I would assume it. But you know, they talk about that blue wall within the police force. That you can get, if you speak up too much, you'll kind of get
You get pushed out.
Yeah, exactly, and that is a problem. We need more. We need more. We need more snitch cops. We really do. We need more cops snitching on bad cops. That's it.
Well, it's the union strength, for example, I think that really stops a lot of that progress. I was looking into virtual reality and augmented reality assisted training for firearm safety and like, especially with de-escalation, because we want to train people to be able to make a decision when they draw their gun, right? Yeah. And the studio that I was working with, they told me that they actually had like law enforcement scenarios in their VR simulator that they were using to train law enforcement in Minnesota. They even used it with the Minneapolis Police Department until the union realized that, say you get put in this virtual scenario, this is why training is such a big issue, right? You can put somebody in a scenario, and you can have the so-called aggressor or the subject do anything that the operator wants them to do, and then the cop has to decide, are they going to shoot or not shoot, basically. Yeah. And you can do that same scenario, but render the suspect a different race. And imagine their surprise, or maybe not my or your surprise, but imagine the operator's surprise when
this is going.
Yep, you have a black person in a scenario, they pull and they do what they do.
It's not funny. I shouldn't be laughing.
And then you change the race of that person, and the exact same, like mathematically, it's in a computer. You can show that the system, that the scenario hasn't changed besides the race of the subject. And then when it's a white person, they react differently. And Minneapolis Police Union decided to ban VR training because they're like, oh, well, this is going to show our bias too much. And they're worried that would be used as grounds for charges if that officer was involved in a shooting in real life later down the road. So while there is good training options out there, again, the union stops any kind of good progress from happening because they're always trying to protect themselves from liability. So,
do you have any is there any part of you that would maybe be interested in infiltrating that system? I guess re-infiltrating the system that you've already kind of experienced. Like I feel like people like someone like you would be really good for the police force to have for training purposes, because you're going to.
They're not going to want my training.
They're not going to want to.
I've even offered my kind of training. Like,
could you lie your way? I suppose at this point we're doing a public interview. Right there, just run this interview back.
No,
I know the police watch up my interviews too. So.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, and I've even, and you know, like the closest I've ever come to that is offering training to the so-called balance interrupters, and they refuse that training too.
Wow.
And I don't want to go down that path right now. Like, I don't want to talk shit about them too much, because they are community members. Some of them are on parole that are getting like basically told they have to be on those kind of groups and whatnot.
Yeah.
But those groups they just mobbing around and whatnot. That doesn't actually make the community safer. And without any training, without any like mental health first aid training, no de-escalation training, I think the most they get is like CPR training. I've seen them show up at protests and actions and either agitate things, make things worse. They've yeah, I don't know how much I want to say on the record.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
But they're just, yeah, like I said, it's real community is just your regular neighbors that you get access to this kind of training.
Yeah.
That are the ones that are going to be more likely to be the so-called first responders.
Yeah.
They're going to be the ones to be closest to the scene.
Yeah, and hopefully you don't have
happens.
to. Most people won't have to, but to have the training is good. It's a good thing to have. You know what I mean? Like, there's a really good chance that you'll go get the training, you'll get yourself a good firearm or 2 or 6 or 27, and you'll never have to use them unless it's just for leisure.
You'll probably carry a medic kit, and you'll probably help more people with a bleeding control kit than you ever will with a gun.
For sure.
Any protest I go to, like, as you can imagine, people think I carry a gun everywhere I go. I carry a medical kit everywhere I go.
Really?
Because if I'm around even like mass violence, I'm more likely to be around the immediate aftermath of people bleeding out and getting after they got hit than me trying to chase somebody down and do the John Wick thing. Like, that's assault anyways. Like, legally, I couldn't even do that anyways.
That's not really even, it's not even a reality, really.
People fantasize about like intervening on mass shooters. I'm like, no, it's so impotentially rare that you personally gonna be around a mass shooting, plus that you're gonna be personally targeted enough for you to have to defend yourself.
Yep.
That if you focus so much more on that lethal capability than learning how to treat a gunshot wound, then why are you carrying a gun then?
And not to mention, I just want to add this.
Yeah.
When a gun is drawn, whether it's you or somebody else or both, the whole world changes. You don't, especially if you've never drawn a gun before, the first time you have no idea how you're going to react. You might be a legal gun owner, carry a legal gun carrier, and be in a situation where that gun could be useful, and you might not be able to pull out
unless you trained.
It's a scary situation. It's scary. You're not going to react how you think you're going to react.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's either going to be the exact opposite or way too far.
Yep.
Some people are so scared, they might think there's a gun being pulled out on them, and we see cops do it, and now all of a sudden you're in a murder trial.
Oh yeah.
Because you overreacted. You know what I mean? So like, when guns come out, things change.
Yep.
A lot.
And there's such a assumption that like, this is what I don't like about carrying Glocks or guns without safeties, because a lot of people think I need to be able to shoot as soon as I draw. Ugh. Cops think like that.
Yeah.
You need to be able to make a decision as soon as you draw.
The safety is your friend.
Shoot or no shoot. You need to be saying commands like drop your weapon, get away from me, XYZ.
Yeah.
If and when they comply, don't you want to like not shoot your fellow humans?
I do not. Yeah.
And again, people, I think it's, and I'll be doing some more videos on this later down the road. Not to get too spiritual or like esoteric, but I think it also relates to how people are in relationship with the concept of like death or their own mortality.
Sure.
Even
100%.
A lot of people haven't thought about how they're going to die, or how are you going to feel if you are about to pass or anything like that. And I think people have shunned death so much that they think that like, I don't want to hurt anybody, that's why I'm just not going to train, I'm not going to get a gun. And I've heard people say this like, oh, if somebody breaks in my house and it's just my time to die, I'm just going to let them. Like, do you really think that's going to happen? And these are the same people that say they would do anything to protect their comrades.
You're going to shit yourself and pee yourself and cry and beg. Like, it's not,
If you don't train,
people need to understand reality. It's not, And I think it's easy to say that stuff because chances are you're never going to go
Because it
through
makes
that.
you feel good about yourself.
And you're probably
too.
never going to have to deal with it. So it's easy to say.
It's usually privileged people too that say those kind of things.
Exactly. It's my time to go. I
yeah.
promise you, somebody kicks down your door with
Yeah.
and has an AR-15 pointed at your head.
You're gonna want to.
It's not going to be, oh, I guess it's just my time.
Yeah.
That's not what you're going to do.
You're gonna want to inconvenience them
Yes.
from doing what they want to do.
Yes.
And I ask people, like, especially people that have kids or a close community, I'm like, well, what would you do to protect your family?
Mhm.
What would you do to protect your comrades?
Yeah.
And then they, well, you know, I would X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, why can't you do that to yourself? Why can't you do that for yourself?
True. Yeah.
You know, and people are so caught up in this hero complex of like, I'm going to be the one to save the day. I'm going to rise to the occasion. And like one of the main mantras we try to pass in class is that you'll never rise to the occasion. You'll only descend to the highest level of your training and your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Get training. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying this while being someone that does, I've never gotten any formal training.
Not yet.
I have other.
You're around people that are trained though.
True. I am.
Yep.
I mean, I am. I'm not going to say anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have any formal training, but
Yeah.
But I think about that a lot because, you know, the one, I don't know why, but the one, I don't want to draw this out too much because I want to make sure people watch. But the one situation that I think about is that one that happened in that mass shooting that happened in, was it Oklahoma, Ohio, where the guy pulled up to the grocery store and remember he live streamed it.
Oh yeah, that was like in the South, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like
he was,
Alabama or something.
Something like that. And he was.
Yeah.
I remember he was only killing black people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he went into the grocery store and remember
Yeah.
he walked up to one of the clerks and the clerk was white and he was like, "Oh, sorry," and then went on about his day shooting minorities.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking to myself, and I could definitely be wrong about this, but I was thinking, you mean to tell me there wasn't a single other human body in that grocery store
In
that
the
was
South,
that
where
was
they're so
legally
proud.
carrying a
Yep.
firearm that couldn't just peep
Oh, yeah.
around, peek around?
Oh,
and just start,
Texas.
like,
Yeah, I heard about
it was
that in Texas.
maybe
too.
that it might have been
Yeah,
Texas.
Yeah. I've heard about. Yeah, there's been several instances.
There were
yeah.
probably 8 people
Mhm.
in that grocery store that were carrying firearms. But did anybody fire back? No. And why? Because when guns come out for real, things change. Now, if they had formal training,
Might have rise to the occasion.
probably maybe
Yep.
would have been able to really be that hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I was in there and I had one on me,
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, I'm returning fire,
Mhm.
depending on who I have with me. If I have my
Mhm.
kids, we might just be hiding
Thinking
in the
about
freezer
who you're
section.
responsible for, of course. Yep.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but you know, like, and that's what I think. Like, there's a lot of people carry weapons.
Uvalde was another example of that on law enforcement side,
For
choosing
sure.
not to intervene
Yeah,
because
that
they
was
legally
crazy.
know they don't have to protect us. You look at Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, I think is the case law that set that precedent.
Yep.
That police don't have to enforce laws. They can choose not to intervene. They can choose not to do anything. And that's what we learned in Uvalde too. Yeah, is that so-called, I don't want to say good people, but yeah, people that were supposed to be serving and protecting legally don't actually have to.
Yeah.
So again, that's why it's up to us. And again, that's not to say that everybody has to arm up. There's plenty of times where I've resolved more often than not things without guns, especially in the United States. Never had to pull my gun on anybody actually, and I hope I never have to.
Yep.
Because again, there's like meeting material needs. Like I've been plenty of times where I have stopped something going down when I just ask, "What do you need?" Not "What do you want?" but "What do you need?" When was the last time that you ate? It's cold out. Do you want a coat? Here's a cigarette. And you would be surprised at the amount of times that just catches somebody like a bit off guard. They're
For
like,
sure.
"Oh, I was here to intimidate you," and you're asking me if I want to
Desperation will
smoke.
make people do a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Desperation will make people do a lot of shit for
Yep.
sure. And you would be surprised by like you just said. But hey, what do
Just
you
to love on
Let
somebody.
me help you.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all to say though. Like, guns aren't for everybody, but being comfortable around people with guns that are not cops, that also takes a little bit of training too. And we've had some of my favorite students are the ones that have gone through the permit to carry class and they refuse their permit to carry certificate because they're like, you know what? After all this training, I don't think that I'm ready to own a gun. And we have informed their decision in that case. And
Responsible
am
fuckers. That's crazy. That's crazy.
not very often, but there are a couple students like that.
Oh, wow.
And then we've had other students that already knew they didn't want to become a gun owner, and they just come in for like our gun safety classes, just to learn how to like unload a firearm in the event they come across one, or if they are around people that own guns. Like I've had spouses or like spouses or partners or domestic partners, however you want to call it, that they may not even want to have access to the firearm, but they just want to know how to be safe around a gun,
Yeah.
and how to help their partner be safe around a gun for like mental health reasons too.
Okay.
So like I say, you don't need to be a gun owner to be comfortable around firearms, because we need to think about why we're so uncomfortable around guns. Sometimes it's going to be from trauma from gun violence from the state or from the police, or trauma from like, you know, interpersonal stuff, living in Northside and whatnot. Or my classroom is in Northside, and there's been a lot of people that come to me saying like, why are you doing gun training in Northside where it's so bad? And I'm like, actually, it's because that can reduce the amount of harm that's going down.
Yeah.
When we train people how to store their guns responsibly, when we train people how to be aware of the warning signs of mental health crises amongst gun owners especially. But it's as simple as like learning how to lock your guns up better.
You got a lot of gang members in there?
In our classes?
Yeah.
No, not.
None? Really?
Not like that. Mostly people connected, people like family members, or again, people that they just want to know a little bit more.
I wonder what would happen if gang members decided to get more educated on gun safety.
There's nothing stopping them from it.
I feel like death rates would go down.
You wouldn't believe how many times have I just been like, okay, you just want to bust off a few rounds because you're happy about that new gun that you bought. What if you just busted off some blanks instead of firing live ammunition into the community where the bullets come down?
You've been watching Hijack, huh?
What?
Hijack?
No.
Apple TV?
No, is that
no?
a movie?
Oh, shit. Okay. I won't
Okay.
give you, no spoilers.
Okay. But again, I like that, but that also doesn't fit into the machismo of like why they have guns in the first place.
idea.
So still like hollow points instead of FMJs. Full metal jacket is the most likely round that's going to over penetrate.
Yep.
And in my own family, I got some family on the north side where my nephew had a stray bullet went through his refrigerator, because he was living in his dad's garage kind of thing, unit right above the garage on the alleyway though. Yep. And it was most likely a FMJ because those can penetrate multiple layers.
For sure.
Whereas a hollow point, it's not perfect, but it's less likely to over penetrate. And again, it's those
Can't
small
over penetration be a good thing sometimes though?
Not really not. If you get shot through and through,
Yep.
they're just one hole.
Right.
Whereas a hollow point is going to shrapnel, and it's going to stay in that first person that was hit, and cause more wound.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, I was thinking. See, I'm an asshole. I was thinking less deadly for the person that catches the bullet, because if it goes straight through, chances are it didn't hit a major organ. It just went through.
But remember,
you're good. But if it gets lodged, now you might have other. Now you got to get the.
Well,
bullet.
the only reason you should be shooting is because you're defending your own life.
True.
And we don't, and that's why I say you need a 4-hour class for this to know all the context. But we talk about shooting center of mass, shooting to stop the threat. Never fire a warning shot, never shoot to wound, because even if you intend to shoot to wound, you can still kill somebody.
Yes.
The femoral artery in your leg, the brachial in your arm, and the carotid in your neck have enough blood pressure to make you bleed out in 90 seconds.
Yes.
And why when like fucking Joe Biden said something like, "Oh, I don't get why cops just don't shoot more people in the leg."
Joe.
I'm like, bro.
Joe's got to relax.
Yeah.
Joe's got to relax.
Yeah, these fucking geriatrics.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, if you do need to fend somebody off and you're trying not to kill them, the best place to shoot is the stomach, is it not?
No, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a gun is only a deadly weapon. So, like I said, it takes a lot of training to kind of, again, comprehend that, like, the only time that you're shooting to stop the threat is when they're there for your actual life and not for your property.
Okay, so you're saying don't shoot unless you absolutely must, and if you absolutely must, you are shooting to kill.
You're shooting to stop the threat.
Got it.
With
so
a
don't
lethal
shoot
weapon.
to wound.
Don't shoot to wound. Don't fire warning shots. Even in, I don't want to get into
That's going to be a controversial statement right there. But I feel it, though, because it was always my understanding.
Believe the experts, like a gun.
Getting shot in the stomach is...
That's the worst way. That's the worst.
It's the most painful, but it also takes the longest for you to actually die. It gives you the
why do you think
most
those
time.
Why do you think those state troopers shot Ricky Cobb II in the stomach 3 times?
Is that why?
Because they knew that was the most painful way to die.
Most painful way. I could not watch the video. I'm sick of watching those videos. I know some people will
Rest in power.
hate me for that.
No,
I can't watch it anymore. I just can't watch it anymore. Like I can't do it. I'm so tired of watching it happen.
Yeah.
And we can close on this, but
Yeah.
Ricky Cobb, R.I.P.
Rest in power.
What is so? Aside from the post, the things that happen, you know, the you know, what's happening now, you know, the marches, the all that stuff. Like, what is your involvement? Are you involved in any of the what's happening after his death? I don't know how to even say that question.
I try to use Atlas Defense and our resources as best we can to support the movement.
Yeah.
So that means we do like autonomous printing. We show up in the capacity that we can, meaning that like at George Floyd Square sometimes, just right down the street from where I live.
Yep.
When Kevin Yang, if you remember when Kevin Yang got killed by the FBI in Northside, that was back in like February or like March or something. Same thing. I just biked over there, passed out a bunch of Know Your Rights information to the community because I knew that the feds would be knocking right after that, asking for statements. So we just try to put information out there in the aftermath of these kind of these police murders, so our neighbors know their rights, so people know that there is a option for us as a community feeling safer without perpetuating and replicating these kind of systems.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might see me on the ground during the rallies or at the protests and whatnot. Most of the time, I'm going to be there with literature, water, and a first aid kit.
Okay.
And that's what I feel is our role, is just to help push the education out there, push the knowledge out there as best we can.
Yeah.
As an anarchist, that's been my approach all the time, is that I just want to inform decisions. I don't want to tell you how to think. I don't want to tell you what to vote for. I don't want to tell you who to believe in other than your community and your own ability.
Give the information and let them do with it what they will. Yeah. No, I think that's the best way for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. R.I.P. Ricky Cobb.
Ricky Cobb II.
Ricky Cobb II.
Yes, sir.
There's not a third, is there? Did he have
no, I know that he had a teenager and a child. At least I believe he had a minimum 2 kids. Yeah. I haven't caught their names yet.
Yeah, that's the part that gets me the most.
Yeah.
Is when you take somebody's father away from them, or mother.
He had a
let's
twin.
be honest, it's usually father. Sometimes it is mother, but most often you're taking children's fathers away from them. And
he also had a twin brother and a sister. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man, I'm getting pretty tired of it, and it just it seems like it's hopeless. Like, how do you fix it?
How do you fix it, man? Abolition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm caught up in the middle of that too. It's like
and abolitionists have to find compromise too. Like, we're not going to get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're going to have to live through this chaotic, reform, weird kind of period.
Yeah.
And then at some point, we are going to realize that people truly are more valuable than property. And we are going to have to find a way to...
Maybe. We might figure that out. We'll see what happens. We'll see with AI. I feel like AI might run our asses up out of here.
Yeah.
Somebody said what was I watched it was a video, and it was made in comedy, but it was somebody talking about, with AI taking over and taking jobs, they were making a push for the government to give each citizen $10,000 a month and just let us party. And it was a funny video, but I started thinking, like, that might be a reality. The government might just say, here, have some money, go off and kill yourselves. AI's got it. That might be the death of society. Could happen. They're just going to make us meaningless. Like, we won't be useful anymore. Like, that's a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I've always lived by a saying too that everybody's an artist until they gotta pay rent. You know what I mean? So like, right?
Oh shit!
So imagine if you didn't have to work some minimum wage bullshit job, and you actually got to do your art and got to be with your family, and you got to travel, and you got to see more countries than this one country, in which we're bordered by Canada and Mexico, when the rest of the world gets to travel and see more cultures. They're bordered by at least 3 or 4 other countries, and we don't get to do that because of finances, capitalism in general. And just the way that, like, we're so isolated over here that we don't get to see much outside.
So essentially what you're saying is, cool, let AI take all the jobs, give us free money, and let us go experience shit.
Somewhere in between that.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a great idea. What the kid was saying in the video was a great idea, but then I started thinking, like, humans probably aren't ready for that.
Nah. We got to think about how we relate to labor.
If the government decided, okay, humans don't need to work anymore, AI's got it, here's $10,000 a month for every human, we're most likely going to just start killing ourselves with drugs, alcohol, guns, wild shit because we're bored, bungee jumping, whatever, you know. And it's and I think like you said, it's a matter of like what point in time could that possibly happen? Probably not.
Could
in our
that
lifetime,
happen?
but maybe.
Yeah. Because that happened like as I think what is it like by there's an urbanization report that projected by 2030 or 2050, either we're going to be coalesced into cities and urbanize and build up, or we're going to spread out and make intentional communities out in the countryside a lot more. And if by that point, maybe there's more of us out in the countryside and intentional communities, and then it's decided you need a universal basic income or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like those intentional communities are more likely to be able to self-sustain than, if we were hyper-urbanized and built up and lived in all these apartment complexes.
Yep.
Yeah, you would have a pretty toxic combination of, like, too much money, too much drug dealers right nearby, too much opportunity, et cetera, for those kind of things. Whereas if we continue to go on this path of trying to find ways to intentionally build community outside of the city and, like, have some kind of, like, long-term goal of not always having to stay here, that might be, again, one of those ways where we could find some kind of peace without having to connect our value to how much work that we do. Because you're a good person whether or not you work. I think that a lot of people need to remember that. You're still a good person whether or not you're a productive member of society. And that's why the 13th Amendment legalized slavery for prisoners and not just anybody. But it's still one of those ways that, you know, the system likes to show that, like, there's only certain types of labor that's valuable to us. And if it's prison labor, it's pennies on the dollar. If it's federal minimum wage, it's $7.25 an hour. If your state advocates for you, you might get $15 an hour. And if you're self-employed, you might be able to name your own price. And even then, is that real? I don't feel liberated in having my own business. Not all the time. I tell people all my clients are my bosses now. I used to have one boss.
It's not people that are not entrepreneurs definitely have a misconception about what it is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, self-employment and
in a lot of ways,
entrepreneurship.
it's very much more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like when I used to have a job, when I managed a warehouse, there was a guy above me that told me what to do.
And then when you're off the clock, you're off the clock.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're an entrepreneur, you're never
truly
off the clock. You're never, ever, ever off the clock.
At least that's why I'm glad that they legalized cannabis now, so that can help me get off the clock.
The only difference is you don't got a guy above you that's going to yell at you if you fuck up, but you might have 100 clients that are ready to let loose on you if you fuck up. So, yeah, it's a catch-22, man. It really is. I hope, hopefully the idea of being an entrepreneur is that eventually you'll get to a place one day where you're the guy that you worked so hard to get away from being an entrepreneur, right? You're the guy that yells at everybody. You want to be that? You really want to be that guy? Probably not.
There's a way to horizontalize it. Yeah. Even Atlas Defense, I noticed that I had that kind of blind spot when I got started. That, like, it was hierarchical in the sense of, like, I'm the owner and this is mine. Whereas post 2020, especially, I try to use the pronoun of ours more often because there's a lot of this stuff that is ours, like our classroom, our training resources, our instructors. So much to the point now that we are reforming into a cooperative. So no longer are we going to have people working with us just as, like, independent contractors for the tax reasons or whatever. But again, like, anybody can find a way to horizontalize their workplace or their own hustle. It's not going to be perfect, but, experiment while you can.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah.
We got to wrap, man. Honestly, I know we could sit here and talk for another 3 hours. I know for a fact.
I might come back later sometime or something.
No,
but
we're gonna have you back, and we're trying to build this to a point where I can get to Joe Rogan status, and we can talk. Basically, the way I look at it is, if you go on Joe Rogan and you don't have a 3-hour conversation,
right,
it is your fault because Joe will talk to you for 4 hours if he's got the time. So I want to get to a place where I can do these really long form conversations because that's my favorite thing to do.
There might be a couple questions that come up after this too, and
for sure.
I've noticed that can be another way, to kind of do like a catch up a few months down the road.
For
like,
sure.
hey, here are all the questions that we had. This is our responses to them.
We could jump on live or something on IG or something.
Oh, yeah.
Take some questions or discuss the interview, post interview.
That's a good idea.
My final question for you is, did Drake inspire you to paint the fingernails?
Oh, no. My partner and I do that. My wife and I started doing that during the pandemic.
You gotta learn to lie on podcasts.
Oh, yeah, Drake, yeah.
Drake did it. Drake. Okay.
Maybe Drake got inspired by me.
Ooh, I think Drake was inspired by Lil Yachty.
Okay.
I think.
I've seen other men and masculine, like, non-binary people do it.
NBA YoungBoy. I mean, there's tons of it's a big thing for rappers right now.
Yeah.
Uzi.
I like my tattoos, but I realized that, like, I don't know, doing your nails is a body modification too.
Yeah.
But it's not as expensive as a tattoo.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, my kids do it too. I have 4 sons. I shouldn't say my kids. 2 of my kids.
Okay, cool.
Well, man, this was a good conversation. I'm glad we could do it. And I think we should at some point after the interview comes out.
Yeah, maybe you should like come to the range with us or just join the class and you have some insight to share
right.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I should be able to find some time for that.
Cool.
I definitely need to.
Yeah, we got some grant funding classes that'll be coming out next year. Hennepin County sponsored they accepted one of our bids that I got written in on for grant funded training for BIPOC youth ages 18 and 25.
Beautiful.
And like de-escalation, gun safety, permit to carry if they're over 21. But
Good.
just keep on the lookout. Watch out for mostly we're also active on Instagram at Atlas Defense MN. And that's where we post most of our updates.
Okay. And what about you? Do you want to be found?
That's mostly where I put all my stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the Atlas Defense MN.
Yep. Like
Facebook, Facebook as well.
A little bit.
You don't really do
I go to
Facebook
Facebook to check on my boomer family and friends. But
Got it. Okay. so Instagram at Atlas Defense MN.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else? Closing thoughts?
Show up, y'all. Be it however you think is in your capacity, but yeah, I don't know. Ask people how you can help and do what you're good at where you're needed. And if you're already doing that, then train and get better at it.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your time, man. This was a great conversation.
Glad to be out here.
Really glad we could do it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's it. Another episode of Minnesota's #1 daily show live on Lake Street. I am your host, Jake Faircloth. Follow me everywhere at Jake Faircloth1. Follow us everywhere at Live on Lake Street. We out. Oh, man, that was great.
It ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. I made a few plays off a flip, now I'm on top. I'm Southside Chief, homie, yeah. What you know about it? Lake Street legend CEO, not the co-founder. What you wanna know about me? I'm so churched up, I'm the last man standing, but I went first up. Most hated, they don't say it when I roll up. The things that people say about me, they don't say close up. Check it, I ain't been to the booth in a minute. Niggas hate the fact that I'm winning. Who makes him the chief of the south side? Oh my nigga, I'm not the lieutenant. When I was in the gym, you wasn't in it. FaceTime, so my windows is tinted. If I said that shit, then I meant it. Niggas gave me the rules and I bent it. Same nigga that was trapping while I was suspended. You wasn't in them hallways banging, boy, you wasn't in it. Really a genuine nigga, homie, don't get offended. From East Lake, South Murder, I'm just ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. It ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't. Say it ain't that I can't stop, it's that I won't stop. I made a few plays off a flip, now I'm on top. I'm Southside Chief, homie. What you know about it? Southside Chief, homie. Now what you know, look, I'm Southside Chief, homie. What you know about it? Lake Street legend CEO, not the co-founder. What you wanna know about me?